There it was, tucked beneath the fluorescent shelf lighting like an old field manual forgotten in the back of a dusty Army-Navy store, the Ruger 10-22. Lightweight, featuring a classic hardwood stock, and chambered in .22 long rifle, it looked more at home on a scoutmaster's shoulder than in the hands of a serious survivalist. For years, it was mostly ignored unless someone was teaching a teenager the basics of marksmanship or pinging aluminum cans for fun. It was too soft-spoken, too unassuming, and too old-fashioned. But something shifted, not with flashy advertisements or high-profile influencers, but slowly, methodically. One preparedness-minded shooter picked one up, then another. Then folks began buying them by the half dozen. All of a sudden, this once overlooked plinker was nowhere to be found. This is the story of how a modest, dependable rimfire rifle earned a place in serious prepping circles not by showmanship, but by sheer utility. Humble origins. The Ruger 10-22 was first introduced in the year 1964. Since that quiet debut, it's become one of the most widely owned rimfire rifles ever produced. You'll find them stashed in closets, barns, and cabinets, handed down like a weathered pair of work boots. Trusted, yes. Revered? Not exactly. It was dependable, but rarely seen as serious. Most folks considered it a stepping stone. The rifle that came after the Red Ryder, and just before a proper centerfire like the AR-15. It was that awkward middle child of the gun world. Meanwhile, the market was overflowing with loud, aggressive platforms, flat dark earth finishes, quad rails, and magnum calibers. Against all that noise, the 10-22 looked quaint. A wooden stock and a rotary magazine didn't turn heads at the shooting range. If you wanted intimidation factor, you moved on. I certainly did. Years back, I remember holding one and thinking it felt more like a toy than a tool. It barely kicked. The muzzle report was mild, and it just didn't feel serious. So it got mentally shelved, not completely forgotten, but dismissed. No one was flexing with one on social media, and yet it was quietly biding its time. When priorities changed, between the years 2020-25, the gun world changed in ways nobody had seen coming. Ammo that was once cheap and plentiful became scarce. Even go-to calibers like 9mm and 5.56 skyrocketed in price and disappeared from shelves. Gun owners, especially those supporting families or training small teams, felt the squeeze. Suddenly, it wasn't just about owning a firearm. It was about keeping it fed, training consistently, and staying financially afloat. That's when people began giving the Ruger 10-22 a second look. A box of .22 long rifle still cost less than a combo meal, even in the worst panic buying periods. 500 rounds could be had for what you'd pay for 2 AR-15 magazines. And the rifle itself? While centerfire platforms were jumping north of $800 or even $1,200, the 10-22 could still be found for under $300 in most shops. That mattered, and preppers took note. Strength in simplicity. At a small gun swap in rural Idaho in early 2025, one man stood out not because of tactical gear or custom builds, but because of what he quietly set down: 5 Ruger 10-22s, neatly packed in a storage bin. Each one was clean, zeroed, and labeled by name. No red dots, no fancy lights, just solid, ready-to-use rifles. When someone asked why he chose to invest in 5 rimfire rifles instead of a couple high-powered battle rifles, his response was simple: I don't need better. I need everyone to be capable. That sentiment captured a growing shift in mindset. It wasn't just about having the most firepower. It was about building resilience into a group, arming friends, kids, and neighbors with something they could operate safely and effectively. The rifles in that crate weren't just tools, they were a strategy. The survivalist's multi-tool. Calling the Ruger 10-22 practical barely scratches the surface. It's more like the Swiss Army knife of prepping firearms, lightweight, low maintenance, and cost-effective. But its strength isn't just in being budget-friendly. It's about how many problems it solves at once. A standard 10-22 weighs just over 5 pounds. That's lighter than a stripped-down Kalashnikov and nearly half the weight of a tricked-out battle rifle. When you're hiking for miles, every ounce counts. This gun won't wear out a kid or an older adult. Then there's the ammo. The 22 long rifle round doesn't scream tactical, but it's brilliant in a logistical sense. 1,000 rounds fit in a shoebox and weigh less than a filled canteen. You can stockpile enough to last through long-term scenarios without breaking the bank or drawing attention. It's quiet, too naturally low in decibels, and easily suppressed to sub-audible levels. That makes it ideal for small game, stealthy defensive tasks, or signaling in a grid-down world. And if you miss, you're not lighting up the county with muzzle flash and thunder. People overthink survival. They chase the next cool thing, the most Instagrammable piece of kit. But the folks who plan for real-world movement, ongoing training, and long-term adaptability, they keep circling back to the 10-22, not because it's glamorous, but because it works. It buys you time, space, and flexibility, 3 things you can't afford to lose when it really counts. And that's the kind of quiet genius most folks never notice, until it's too late. A platform built to evolve. At first glance, the Ruger 10-22 may come off as basic or even bare bones. But underneath that, no-frills appearance lies one of the most flexible rimfire rifle systems ever developed. If the AR-15 is the prom queen of modern rifles, then the 10-22 is her introverted cousin who's handy with tools and owns a garage full of upgrades. Nearly every part of this rifle barrel, stock, trigger group, bolt, optics can be swapped or customized. Want to transform it into a takedown hiking rifle? No problem. Need a quiet varmint solution with a suppressor? Done. From precision builds to tactical setups with drum mags and folding stocks, there's a version of this rifle for every mission you can think of and several you haven't. This level of adaptability isn't just for hobbyists tinkering at the bench. For those of us thinking long-term, it's a blueprint for resilience. In a world where replacement parts might vanish or logistics fall apart, having a rifle that can be reconfigured using common parts is invaluable. One rifle that can play 10 different roles is far more useful than 10 rifles for 10 different tasks. Many shooters I know have dedicated 10-22s for very specific uses, one tuned for suppressed use, another set up for training, one optimized for small game, and one packed in a truck kit. That's not being excessive, that's building smart redundancy. And the real beauty? The hands-on experience of customizing it to your liking. The 10-22 encourages that kind of mechanical curiosity. It's one of the few rifles that rewards both the shooter and the tinkerer in equal measure. Debunking the toy gun assumption. For a long time, the Ruger 10-22 didn't get much respect in serious gun circles. It didn't kick hard, didn't make a lot of noise, and certainly didn't come loaded with mall ninja aesthetics. To some folks, that meant it wasn't serious. Many dismissed the 22 long rifle cartridge outright too soft, not enough punch, and prone to bouncing off hard surfaces. But that attitude ignores context, and context matters more than caliber. Not every situation calls for brute force. Sometimes discretion is the objective. Feeding your family for a week with minimal noise, minimal expense, and zero attention? That's where the 10-22 shines. It doesn't try to dominate, it just performs. It can quietly drop a rabbit at 40 yards, teach a total beginner how to handle a firearm, or stop a threat in close quarters without waking the whole block. People laugh at the idea of a rimfire for survival until ammo costs skyrocket and recoil sensitivity becomes a real training barrier. In those conditions, having a rifle that anyone can use, maintain, and afford to feed becomes more of a strength than a compromise. Those who scoff often haven't had to rely on a rifle under real stress. When resources matter more than firepower, that humble .22 starts looking like a tool, not a toy. Trusted through use, not hype. In the preparedness world, gear earns its place through performance, not advertising. And the Ruger 1022 has been proving its worth consistently from around 2022 onward. It wasn't flashy marketing that put it in prepper kits, it was practicality. Folks started noticing how well it filled key roles: affordable to maintain, reliable under pressure, and easy to replace without drama. By early 2025, I saw the tone in online discussions shift. It wasn't just about how to trick out your AR. It was about outfitting an entire household affordably and effectively. I read a post from a guy in Central Texas who laid out 6 10-22s for his family, each with a red dot, a sling, a basic cleaning kit, and 2,000 rounds in labeled ammo cans. He wasn't flexing, he was showing a working system. Another prepper group outside Spokane ran weekend drills exclusively with 10-22s. The logic was airtight, low recoil, cheap training, zero wasted ammo. Their goal wasn't raw firepower, it was teamwork and repeatability. When the same rifle keeps showing up in trucks, storage bins, and bug-out kits, you know people are making decisions based on utility, not looks. The buy 10 philosophy. To someone new to preparedness, the idea of buying 10 rifles might seem crazy, but that's because they're thinking like a consumer, not a planner. In long-term disruption scenarios, you don't just need one high-end rifle, you need a system that can be replicated, taught, and maintained. That's where the Ruger 1022 fits better than most. Cost is only part of it. The big win here is consistency. When everyone in your group has the same platform, everything becomes easier: training, parts replacement, shared magazines, and common troubleshooting. One team in rural Kentucky started collecting 1022s in early 2024. By the next summer, they had standardized kits for 12-people rifles, cleaning gear, suppressors, and matching slings. In a real emergency, what matters most is what works under pressure. When adrenaline's high, fine motor skills drop off fast. That's when consistency becomes gold. The 1022 offers that in spades. So no, it's not about owning more guns. It's about having a platform that scales without introducing chaos. Why it keeps winning. In the prepping community, real value is measured in performance over time. That's why the Ruger 1022 keeps punching above its weight, not because of flashy ballistics, but because it just works. I read a post on Reddit where a guy said he skipped buying a $1,000 rifle because he couldn't afford to feed it. Instead, he stocked up on bulk .22 long rifle, extra mags, and invested in food and first aid. That choice might not turn heads, but it's sustainable. Another huge benefit? Training. A 1022 doesn't scare new shooters. Whether it's your spouse, your kid, or your neighbor, they can all get comfortable with it fast. There's no loud bang or punishing recoil to deal with. In high-stress moments, that confidence boost is priceless. One prepper posted a photo of his full setup, 6 10-22s, all with optics and ammo cans sorted by shooter. No confusion, no overlap, just readiness that scales. That's what makes the 1022 special. It's not a collector's item. It's a tool that works for anyone, anywhere, without a lot of hand-holding. And when things go sideways, that's exactly what you need. Final thoughts. The Ruger 1022 never chased attention. It earned its place quietly through reliability, through utility, and through consistent results. It doesn't win beauty contests, but it wins in the real world. When things fall apart, and simplicity, mobility, and adaptability matter more than flash, the 1022 keeps showing up in the right hands, doing what it's always done dependably, affordably, and without fail. If you've got your own story or setup involving the 1022, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear what mods you've made, what roles it fills in your kit, or how it's worked for you over time. And if this breakdown gave you something to think about, be sure to like, subscribe, and stick around. I've got more deep dives coming your way, gear that's proven, plans that hold, and honest insights from the field. Stay sharp, stay ready, and I'll catch you in the next one.